Good. Good morning, everyone. It's 8:02 on Tuesday morning, March 1st. Can't believe we're in March. Yay. The weather's showing it. Let's hope that stays. This is a curriculum committee meeting. We'll go around and introduce ourselves. We'll do the in-person people first, if that's all right, and then we'll pop up on the screen. I'm Erin Dove, school board member.
Tim Carter, Director of Technology.
Jill Reese, Director of Elementary Education.
Jen Wimmer, Superintendent.
Erin Faust, Program Administrator for the Curriculum Department.
Okay, sending it up to Laura.
I'm Laura Jackson. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning.
And Connie.
I'm Connie Schmidt, School Board Member.
Okay, thank you. We have a number of discussion items on our agenda today. We're going to start with 7th through 12th grade health course review and revision, and that is Laura.
So we talked about the 7th through 12th grade health course revision process during our last meeting in February. And since that time, the health team was able to meet on February 14th, which was a work day for staff, but a day at home for students. And on that day, the team looked at the standards and reviewed the current coursework and then asked a number of really key questions as far as how we're moving forward. And those key questions all were about data and what does our data show as far as student needs for health. And then talked about the team wanted to touch base with juniors and seniors to ask them, many of them took the health class when they were in 8th grade. And now that they are juniors and seniors, how has that impacted them? Did that provide them information that is helpful to them now? And so the team wanted to ask juniors and seniors for some feedback on the present offering and taking that solely in 8th grade. And so this week, the health teachers are going to get together to kind of flesh out what those questions may be. Tani?
Can we ask the parents of those students for feedback as well?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you.
And we would like to use that then as they're working through the process of the course revision. So that's really, it's a small update, but that's the work as they started it.
Okay, so it's more just about dates and what's projected to happen on those dates at this point.
Correct. Because they really had some really solid conversation about the current course and how it's instructed both at the middle school level and at the high school level. And because all the teachers were together at that point across buildings. And it was really, they felt very valuable and they were making a lot of progress in really looking at the current instruction.
Okay.
And then those wonderings about impact and future, what the real need is for students. And some of that based on data that we see from incidences and then from their own feedback.
Okay, I don't have any more at this time. Sounds like we'll get updated each meeting a little bit. Okay.
Tani, any questions? Thank you.
Okay, we're good to move on to the second item then, which is human growth and development review process. And it looks like this is kind of some of the same. But if Laura, if you want to explain a little more.
Yes, so the human growth and development portion of the health curriculum is, as we go to review that process, we have to form an advisory committee. And the makeup of that advisory committee is directed in state statute. Essentially, you need to have parents, community members, you need to have a member of the clergy, and you need to have healthcare professionals on the advisory team, as well as staff. Parents can make up 25% or more of the committee. I'm sorry, parents or guardians can make up 25% or more of the committee, but no other group can be more than that. And so we need to form that advisory committee. Have scheduled some dates in April for the review of the health curriculum. And I put out tentative agendas for each of those dates. I would share this information with the full school board at the next school board meeting, then work to form the advisory committee so that because the advisory committee is appointed by the board, we would then need to take those members that have expressed interest and share that with the board, and the board would need to approve the advisory committee members. We would ask that each member be able to commit to the process and to the agreements for the advisory committee so that the committee can work effectively and efficiently in reviewing the content. The advertisement for the committee would go out to parents and guardians in their school newsletters. It will go in the district newsletter and be on the website. Community members who've expressed an interest would also receive the invitation, as well as it being sent to all members on the list of people who receive who in the community who have signed up to receive our district newsletter. Members of the clergy will all get the information so that they are able to, let me clarify. The pastors of the churches in the district will receive an invitation, and if there are other clergy within the church, they can pass that on to them in order to seek their participation. And then the committee would meet in April with defined targets for each meeting.
I like how you laid out the agenda for each meeting. I think that's nice for people to see if they really want to commit to such a thing. I have a question, maybe I missed it. How many people, is there a number in total that make up the advisory committee? I mean, we talk about percentages and you need one of this or whatever, but is there a total number?
I would seek that there be 15 to 20 people on the advisory committee.
I don't have any more questions at this time. Connie, do you have anything?
And I'll share the process with the full board at the school board meeting on the 7th, which will also give another opportunity for public to hear about the process, whether they are parents, guardians, or community members, so that if they are interested in applying to be part of that team, they can send in an application.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then next on your list is the Start College Now Early College Credit Timeline.
Yes, so those applications from students are due today, March 1.
Oh.
And it won't be ready to go before the school board on March 7th because our counseling department looks at each of those applications and determines if there's a course in-house that currently meets those the requirements or the same goals as the course the student has requested. So the counseling department will go through all of the criteria identified in board policy for approval of the course. And then I would present that list to the full school board for approval at the second board meeting in March. We do this twice a year. We do it in October and we do it in March. And it always has the October 1 or March 1 deadline. And it just is not something that we normally do have the opportunity to do 2 board meeting presentations before acceptance or approval or denial of the requests. And students are signing up for, at this time, they can sign up for summer courses or fall courses.
Okay,
Do
and
you have
then,
any questions about the process?
just remind me, so a student may request 4 courses, but they may actually only end up taking 1. So they're kind of covering their bases and seeing where their interests lie, and then maybe just picking 1 or 2 of those.
Correct. Sometimes a course doesn't run at the college or university, and students have signed up for a variety of them. If it doesn't run, they can actually replace it with a like course or just not take it, but typically our students are signing up for a lot and hopeful that when the schedule's done and the course runs, that they get in and that it fits within their schedule. So that's why they do sign up for a lot, so that the approval is done ahead of time. Take up to 18 credits through this process. Yeah. It's like having a year of college done.
Yeah,
Take all 18.
right? It's really
Well, not quite a year.
very full semester.
Yes.
I don't have any other questions. I just really love this program. And speaking as a high school parent, I'd love for us to promote this program more. I didn't even know about this program before being on school board. So just a little something to think about. Maybe
I
my
think
kids
that
did,
our
but I
counseling
didn't.
department worked tried to put it out there more often this year
Yeah,
than particularly this semester after receiving some other feedback. They worked really hard to put it out there a little bit more than they had, or more than they had in the past.
and I would agree with that. One of my girls did get a note sent home from the counselor, like, please look at this. But I just think it's an exciting program. It would be nice to know even earlier. So,
I agree. Because sophomore year is when you first start signing up for it, because you're eligible junior year.
okay.
Well,
Laura, is there a point counselor at the high school who really knows the program in and out? Just because I field some phone calls through the virtual program of people thinking that this is part of that, who can I direct them to for more information?
Coyle.
Matt Coyle. Thank you.
Yes, Matt Coyle is the counselor that receives all the applications and then does the match and the criteria. Each of the counselors works with their individual students, but Matt takes in all the applications and he knows it in and out.
Well, that would explain that's where the note came from. Okay. I think we're good then, Laura. If you want to get back to your seminar presentation.
Thank you. I am gonna mute myself
Okay.
and put my picture on so I can still hear, and I am gonna move on over. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is WBVA program discussion, and I think Erin, you're leading that.
So I have sort of two-fold update on here. I have some information about our semester 2 enrollment and then some information for planning for next year. So just wanted to give the board a little update about how many students we are serving currently. We have 69 full-time virtual students in grades 9 through 12, and we have 49 hybrid students in those same grades. So that's quite a number of students that we are serving at the high school level in some capacity through our virtual program. Our grades 6 through 8, currently we have 20 full-time virtual students and 3 hybrid students. We've been very careful with our hybrid enrollments for 6 through 8 and really allowing those students to take music in the in-person building so that they can pursue choir, band, or orchestra. And we also have a few students with, who we've been working with our special education department or other departments to meet their needs very strategically with this program. Some of the things that impact this is open enrolled students, due to the state statutes, have to be a hybrid student. So we have one student in our 6-8 program at this point who is in that situation. They're open enrolled to the district. So we very carefully constructed a plan for that student to have a class in person and then take advantage of the rest of the virtual program. And then in our grades K through 5, our current enrollment is 12 students full-time. The K-5 program is a pilot this year with Wisconsin Virtual School. So they are actually offering the live teachers and the synchronous instruction every day. We have 11 of those 12 students receiving and participating in that program. One of our students after first semester, just based on how the family was accessing the program, we actually moved to their asynchronous program. So there is still a teacher that oversees her schoolwork, but she is not participating in those live lessons and those live meetings with the teacher. So that is something that WVS didn't offer at the beginning of the year, but based on how students were accessing that pilot program, made some updates that semester for students to better meet the needs of how those families were accessing the program. So in addition to utilizing the Wisconsin Virtual School curriculum and their teachers, we do have one West Bend School District teacher who's a special education teacher supporting virtual students who are special education students. I don't have the breakdown of the number of students that is, but we do have a handful in K-8 that receive instruction with our teacher. So overall, we have 183 students taking advantage of the program, and that equates to 489 courses for our students in grades 9 through 12. And then just a little breakdown of our district staffing plan. I oversee the program, which is about 50% of my role split with overseeing summer school. We have the one full-time special education teacher for grades K through 8. We have a part-time high school counselor, about a 0.25 clerical and about a 0.25 special education K-8 support. At semester, we added a few additional special education students, which required us to have an additional personnel to support their needs. So then our plan for next year is we are looking to continue our more than 10-year partnership with the Wisconsin Virtual School. Enrollment is now open for all students in grades K through 8. The registration information was shared in the West Bend Virtual Academy weekly newsletter. It has been shared in the district newsletter and in the individual school newsletters. And all the registration information can be found directly on the West Bend Virtual Academy website for families who are interested. So this year, the students in grades K-5 participated in this synchronous pilot program. Due to the success of that program with its current pilot schools, they are actually offering that again next year. And they are going to expand it and offer it for grades 6 through 8 as well, which is a fantastic opportunity for our students because currently they do not have access to live lessons with their teachers. They are more in the high school format of you are on your own working independently, reading your lessons and going through it with teacher support, but not teacher instruction. So that will be a new opportunity next year. Students will also still be able to participate asynchronously if they like that format that they're currently in. The other piece of that though is currently, because we are a longtime partner with the Wisconsin Virtual School, West Bend students will have early enrollment opportunities. So we have until April 15th for our students to enroll to ensure that I have a seat for them in the program because it will be seats based. After April 15th, WVS is going to open the program to the entire state. So that means one student from one school, one student from another school can access it. I can potentially accept late enrollments, but it will be due if there is a seat available based on how their program is structured. So I've been encouraging families to sign up by that April 15th deadline. That is also posted on the WBVA website that you need to sign up by the state. I'm also offering, I held a virtual information night for students in grades 9 through 12 already, because I know they needed to schedule their high school classes earlier. And then next week, Tuesday, and next week, Wednesday, I'm hosting an information night for K-5, pre-K through 4, current grade level, and then also an additional one for current 5th through 7th grade, who will be in 6th through 8 next year. So families have an opportunity to meet with me, ask questions, and learn more about the program and what it offers. And all of that information, again, has been shared in the district newsletters, but it's also available on the Westwood Virtual Academy website.
Will it continue to be shared in newsletters till that April 15th date?
Can you have Nancy in communications add that to social media as well?
Yep.
Erin, are we opening up spots or are we staying with the same amount of seats for students?
It is first come, first served. So if we have 15 students who register by April 15th, I will be able to guarantee those 15 seats for those students. After that April 15th date, I can't guarantee seats. There's a waiting list that will exist, and if WVS meets the criteria to fill another 25 student class, they have committed to hiring the teachers necessary to do that.
So-
50 that come,
Yeah.
it's the same thing.
It is the same thing.
So it's critical for our families to take the opportunity of kind of almost pre-enrollment
Correct.
to secure those seats. So we need to, if you can work with Nancy in communications
Yes.
to bolster that, that would be helpful.
I just kind of have a more general question, not necessarily about registration. With hybrid students, is it, I guess I'm looking to see if it's a mix or kind of both ways. So are these kids that would plan to be full-time virtual, but maybe want to take band, and so they're just taking band with us? Or are these more likely students who prefer full-time in person, but, oh, there's a really unique, I think we saw that with American Sign Language last year. There's a really, really unique class. So I guess I'm wondering, is it equal working both ways, or is it more one way or the other?
It is a relatively equal mix.
Okay,
We have some students who are 50-50 split. They take half in person, half in the virtual academy. We have some students who take one class as their hybrid class, particularly some of our foreign languages or world languages. And we do have some who take most of their classes virtually, but they have those one or two that they take in person.
okay, so it is a mix. I think that's great. I think that also shows that, we're not maybe in desperate need of one particular class at the high school to keep kids all in person or something like that. It's a mix of things. How does this enrollment compare to pre-COVID?
Oh, I wish Laura was here. It is high.
Hello, I can address that.
Oh, there you go. Thanks, Laura.
The enrollment is higher than pre-COVID.
Okay.
By all of the 6-8 students, like that's an increase.
Oh.
And the high school enrollment is an increase based on the number of courses, because previous to COVID, we had a set amount that we would allocate towards what was called WABOLA at the time.
Yeah.
And the process had been over the years to fill the course list in WABOLA. So students, every semester, there was a waiting list of students to get in and be able to take whether they wanted full-time or part-time courses. So the number of courses we're offering is more than double. I'm thinking about the budget amount that we expend at this time, and in WABOLA's highest year, we have about more than double, and I would say about 50% above that, so about 150% more.
Thank you.
Yep.
I don't have anything else. I'm excited that we can offer this program for our students, for especially the variety of classes for those kind of one-off things. I think that's really exciting. Otherwise, I don't have anything else to add. Connie, do you have anything? Okay. All right, thank you, Erin. Next on the agenda is 5th through 8th grade social studies feedback review.
Thank you.
And Jill.
Thank you. Thank you. So, I have a couple of things I'm gonna bring up on the screen. We'll start down, Erin, thank you. So the document that Erin's bringing up is our original feedback document from, the survey information. Actually, it was the survey that public participants could put in their comments when they looked at the resources. So this document has not changed, but I just wanted to bring it forward again because we've continued looking into the feedback and we've continued investigating it. So this is included in Word docs. It's not a copy in here. I apologize for that. I don't know. Laura made copies and I wasn't quite sure what she made. So this is not new, like I said, but there's some new things that we have investigated and have come forward from there. So a lot of the feedback we were getting was on the U.S. history materials for 7th grade. And so part of that is there's been a series of questions and emails that have come through, some photos, things like that. So there's another document that I created based on some, sure, thank you, Erin. Thank you, Anna. So this is a new document, and this is also in Word docs, and I just want to kind of explain what this is, and then we'll talk through it a little bit. So basically what this is this is the Mcgraw-Hill U.S. History textbook, and it's the units, and then all of the topics from those, lesson topics from those units listed in one place. And so I went through it because I wanted to just get an understanding of what the feedback was and where we could make any adjustments and where we could make changes. So as we look at this, I'm just gonna make this a little bit small so you can see. It'll be hard to see the type, but you can at least see some of the attachments I have in there. So there's a couple things I just want to point out. So this is the whole book, and there's 18 units in the book. In the first unit, I attached in this section a sample lesson, and that sample lesson is in your board packet. Actually, I think it's the one from 18. Let me just hold up.
It is 18.
Okay, so hold on, let's scroll over. So if you go similarly in 18, if you go to these attached documents, there's a sample, it says updated lesson plan. There's a sample lesson in there. One of the things that I want to point out with this resource is in the book, there's a series of pages that come with each lesson. And I put a picture of that at the top of the lesson plan. It's a little bit tricky to see because of the photo. But there is a couple pages of options when the teacher creates the lesson in their account. So there's probably about 35 to 40 different items the teacher can pick from to put together a 45-minute lesson. And so when they go through that lesson, they take their 45 minutes and times are listed on each of those, and they build their lesson based on what is in that menu. And so I built some lessons based on those menus to give samples of what we would use. Part of it, if you note in this little yellow box over here, there's a lot of feedback around SEL and using SEL in this resource. Because in that sample set of 35 materials, there's a little thing where you could do an SEL part. We would not use that, and we have no intent to use that section. And honestly, if you're building a 45-minute lesson from all of those materials, you don't, as a social studies teacher, you don't really have even a time in your lesson to fit that in. We have the board-approved second step curriculum, and so that would be only what we use. We would not use any of those. And so we have just a series of different items that we would work together with the teachers to build those specific lessons. And so once a resource like this is approved, and particularly Mcgraw-Hill, it gives teachers a lot of options to build according to the standards, to build according to what the district protocols are, and to build according to what the students need to know and be able to do. And so we would build those lessons once we have the resource adopted to meet the criteria that we have in the district. And so that sample goes through some of the feedback from some of the questions, and then builds like a sample draft lesson of what we would look at. It has the standards built in, it has kind of the lesson components, the times, things like that, and goes through what we would do that work with the teachers once we have the resource in place. There were some other things that I attached in here because there was some feedback, particular feedback on like Greta Thunberg and some particular people in some of the resources. And so I just attached some other information on Greta, things that I learned actually about her. But also some things like there's lessons we would eliminate. And so there's some pieces from a lesson on President Trump that we would eliminate. There's some other information that we would add as an addendum to that lesson and work through it like that. So we would continue doing that work. This photo right here, we received a set of photos from a community participant that showed different portions of different books and different pieces of curriculum. That photo right there is a photo of something that was given in an overview video for the curriculum. It's actually a screenshot of some different resources that are in the curriculum, and it shows a pad, like an iPad or a tablet that teachers could use. We don't have those devices, and so we wouldn't be using that, but teachers can access some of those things in their accounts. So I just wanted to be clear about that photo, because that photo is a little bit different than kind of what we
Dr. Reese.
Yes.
Dr. Reese, I'm sorry, I'm not, the screen that's being shared with me is not, I think, the same as what you're viewing in the room. Can someone take a look at that for me, just so I can keep up with what you're referring to?
Thank you, Tani. Is that better? Can you see it now?
Oh, sorry, yes, thank you.
Okay. All
I had
right.
my mic off.
Okay, do you need me to go through anything else again?
No, I have everything pulled up on my laptop so I can zoom in and out, but this gives me a reference for which document I should be looking at.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So basically, we just continued to look into the questions and feedback. There were questions about like how long a lesson would take, and it's really a 45-minute lesson. There were questions about adopting standards, adopting curriculum, and all these things would go through board process in the appropriate manner. There's a question about the priority standards. And so priority standards were created based off of the Wisconsin state standards. And they are a draft right now, and we're taking feedback from teachers. So really, we've made some adjustments too over the course of the last couple of months, but really, as we bring standards forward for adoption in July, we would bring forward the draft of the priority standards along with the state standards, because they really balance each other out. And it's important, in my mind, to have both of them be available to teachers. Again, go ahead.
I just think it's important to talk about, there's like 3 different components going on. There's the standards piece, right? And that requires committee work with our staff and board approval. There's the curriculum piece, right? Which are the lessons, the units of study and the lessons. And that, again, as you said, first we generally kind of pick a resource, right? And picking a resource. So there's no one beautifully built resource. It's picking a best fit for a district. And that's what you're talking about is the component of resource selection. And then all those other items need to be built specific to us and approved at each point. So it's
Right.
we're talking about the resource specifically, but the standards alignment as well as the curriculum, units of study are all pieces with input development, committee work, and approval.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. The other piece is we had done, on the original doc, we had looked at two separate resources. So we looked at Savas Pearson and we looked at Mcgraw-Hill. From our angle, we are recommending that we prefer to move forward with Mcgraw-Hill. And part of that is because the way the online components are set up and the way the resources are set up, teachers have the ability to build those units of study and to build those lessons based on our standards. And we also have the ability to eliminate or not teach certain components that don't meet our criteria. So at our next curriculum committee meeting, I'm going to bring forward a document that showcases, we were sent a bevy of photos. We were sent from a community participant a bevy of 19 photos. And I've done a further investigation into those 19 photos, that alert live clarification, and that explains some of these online components also. So I will bring that forward at the next curriculum meeting to kind of just go through and explain what each of those photos are and how that connects with the tools we have and things we will and won't use. I've reached out to the vendor about a couple of them, and so I'll have some good information on that.
And I think from a district perspective, that's one thing we want to solidly address through, Erin, your leadership of the curriculum committee is that, when we purchase a textbook, if you will, that doesn't de facto become our curriculum, right? There's still so much customization and our local piece of it and that approval process and that tailoring. Because I think that's hard. Like I said, there is no one perfect textbook out there at all. So I think it's just really important to reiterate that we take that time to look at what our local expectations are, customize our work in utilizing any resource so that it meets, like you said, the board's expectations, the community's expectations too, so.
So just to clarify, this little photo here is from that set of large group of photos we received, just so a clarification on that. Any questions about the work or moving forward?
Did my screen update? Sorry.
They haven't changed what's on there. It's the page with the topics listed at the top. Is that what you're looking at? There we go.
Oh, okay, sorry, I wasn't. I thought you changed what, I thought you were looking at the list with the photos and responses.
So there's one photo, there's one photo in topic 4. So that's the photo I was referring to. So are there any questions about the work or moving forward where we would like to go?
I mean, I have some questions, I guess. I'd like to using this resource. I love that it's online. Little things like when they had a picture and they would have little clickable bubbles and you could learn more about what was happening in that photo or drawing or whatever it was. I think it's really interactive. I like a lot of the questions in there because I think it spurs discussion and thought. Is this the resource that had multiple reading levels available to it?
Correct. Yeah, in the online tool, the teacher can populate a student's account with the pieces they're supposed to read, and they can change their reading level based on student flex styles and what they need. I think there's 3 different levels. It's not like a crazy amount of change.
Sure.
I think there's 3 different levels for lesson.
Okay, and when you talk about a teacher building a lesson, because, I mean, we've kind of talked about, there's no way you're gonna cover everything, and you kind of have options of like, these couple things will engage, and so you maybe pick one or whatever. Is that something they build, the teacher can build online, and it will just populate that information then?
Yes, they can build it online. Part of the idea is that we would purchase a teacher resource book. So I did receive one teacher resource book, and I believe it's about 60 pounds. It is massive. But we would purchase a teacher resource book for the teachers to have a hard copy. We would plan on purchasing one set of classroom student books. And not for the students to check out individually, but just for the teachers to have in the rooms for students to use as they're looking at different things and things like that. But probably 70 to 80% of what they will have will be online.
Okay. When we purchase this, can changes be made online to what's in the resource? I mean, we're creating history every day.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering about if that is a capability, and then what does the notification and approval process look like for that?
So that's a great question, because we did receive some feedback on one of the resources that's offered in the student accounts. And so I've contacted the vendor to see if we can just kind of zero that out in student accounts.
Okay.
And so they're working on that right now. So I believe we have an opportunity to shape some of those things if we don't want them. The other thing is, some of the things are pay for play, so to speak. So if there's, let's say there's 20 resources and we only purchase 15 of them, then the students wouldn't have those in their accounts. So we'll have to decide what those things are, but I believe there's something called By the Way, or BTW.
Oh, yeah.
That's a concern. And so I have reached out to the vendor to say, if we get to that place, can we X that out of the students' accounts? And
Okay.
they're working on that right now.
I mean, that was a totally different access
It is,
point.
it's not the text, it's not the student inquiry journal, but it is just an additional.
It was kind of a current event situation.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. So I reached out to them, they're looking into it for me, but I don't see why we couldn't do that, and they're just getting back to me on that.
Okay. Do you, I mean, there's a lot of feedback in here. A lot of it is kind of around the same subject matters or same concerns. Do you feel a need for us to go through each point and talk about it, or, I guess I'm looking for your feedback on that too, Tani, like how you feel about, I mean, I've gone through, I would say 2/3 of the feedback document, but I didn't finish. It's a lot.
Yeah, and also the questions, there's 20 questions related to the social studies resources, and like Superintendent Wimmer mentioned, it just even trying to I think they're all very good questions, and even just trying to distill them into groups, the standards, the curriculum, which part they belong to. I'm still trying to organize in my mind the best way to approach this. So I really don't feel comfortable moving forward with anything until we can figure out how best to do that.
Yeah, I would agree. I almost kind of want to create buckets. I do think some of those questions were answered either previously or today, perhaps. So
Yes,
looking at some of those and putting them in a.
and I know we've answered some of those questions in the past, and because they keep coming up, as people come in and out of the conversation, I think it would be nice to have, printed answers, available so that, almost like an FAQ, for the public, so that we're not having to revisit the answers to those questions and we can, keep our attention on the meat of what we're trying to do here. Like for the BYOC question, what happened to that? I know that was answered last year, but maybe, people that are new to the conversation and, that's a question that I seem to get, regularly.
I'm happy to do that. We can work on this some more and put some buckets around it and put the kind of FAQ things together. The first document is the original, that we went through at the last meeting, but I think as I continue to get questions and photos and things like that from people, some of those questions keep coming back. They're not exactly the exact same question, but they are the same topic, so to speak. So I'm happy to kind of put those together and
I mean, I have some of that work too in my 17 pages that I put together this weekend of just trying to respond to some of these. And, yeah, I think some of them could kind of get grouped together and we could answer some things at the same time. I just think that might be a better use of our time than ticking through each of these when they could kind of be grouped together.
So one of the challenges with that, and just to be clear, is I can put it into FAQ, but I just want you guys to be aware that I won't change the original document, but I'm taking an original document and changing it. And there was some feedback before that if I changed a document, it wasn't being straightforward. So I just want to be aware, I'm happy to do it, but just know that that was some of the feedback before. If I change things, I'm not being straightforward and,
Can you put in the, answer for each of the FAQs, the date that the answer was composed?
sure,
I
that's
would,
doable.
and maybe Tanya, this isn't what you're thinking, but I would prefer the FAQs to be more around, these things are standards-based questions. These are resource questions. And I think the nitty-gritty of this feedback is something we can talk about at our next meeting. And because I've invested so much time in this, I'm happy to kind of start bucketing those things. I think that these are different, like this is around specific topics from the resource and is more in the weeds versus maybe I'm wrong with what you were talking about, Tanya, but I think the FAQs should be more high level to address some of the bigger questions around how do we come up with standards, what's the approval of them, what's this priority standards we're talking about versus how the resource interacts with those.
I agree. And in fact, maybe, there's an FAQ for each bucket, once the buckets are determined.
I don't think you have to put each of these comments in an FAQ. I think this is.
Yeah.
Resource based, and we can talk about the points that are coming up in there separately.
Okay, that makes sense. I just am hesitant to change that original.
No, and I agree, yeah. It's just a lot, I'm trying to think if I have anything else.
It is a lot.
Okay, so to be revisited next meeting, I don't have that date off the top of my head, but we can look it up. Are you good to continue, Tony?
Yeah, this makes the SEL discussion look like a piece of cake.
Well, thank you, Tammy.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was significantly easier than this. So I anticipate we're gonna have to spend a significant more amount of time on it. So I don't wanna rush to anything.
That makes sense.
Okay, we are gonna move on then to the next item is Family and Consumer Science Culinary Curriculum Resource Update. From Tim.
So in board docs in front of you in your packet, there is a linked spreadsheet and a pricing list or a document list that shows some of the resources. So our culinary program years ago decided to, when they did their curriculum, align with the National Restaurant Association. And so through that, they have a program called Prostart, which is provides curricular resources, but also includes a nationally recognized certification. So every year we have students who take that certification test and pass that. And that's about leadership in restaurants. So it's not, some people are familiar with the serve safe, which is just, the rules of working in the kitchen and, sanitary and what temperature does food have to be held at and all those types of things. The Prostart piece is really around leadership and management of the restaurant industry. And so with that, you utilize their curricular resources for that. So we had purchased all of that. We're at a point where to continue to offer the certification and have our kids be successful, we need to move to their newer version of their curricular product. And so in front of you, you see a proposal for some new textbooks, the student activity guide, and the teacher resources. These are basically updated versions of what we currently would have, and allow our kids to continue to align to that nationally recognized curriculum and certification. And so we often do that in CTE, where we look at what certifications and what business and industry is looking for. And so in this case, we know that Prostart is one of those pieces that is valued. And so just looking for feedback from the committee on the resource, any questions, next steps as to how you'd like to proceed with this process. It's a little different being the fact that there's only one that aligns with the certification. And so we want to continue to offer that here for our students.
I mean, I don't have any questions. This is a national standard and we want our kids to get certified that way. So I feel like we have to provide them with those materials. That's a no-brainer for me.
Thank you for sharing the prices of
Yeah, I like
these
that.
materials, Tim. Can you tell us about what the cost is per student?
Yeah, so it's hard to say per student because we're only buying classroom sets of textbooks. And so we're not buying individually and checking out to 100 kids at a time. We're just utilizing them as a classroom resource. So these are classroom sets with a couple of additional textbooks that can be utilized for our EL students or our special education students, things like that. But you're looking at a total of $6,200 and $6,208 for the materials that we would purchase. That includes the teacher the teacher resource guide, the student activity guide, and all of the textbooks. Typically, we're going to use these for 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
Even if you go, let's say if you go 5 years, we're talking about $1,200 a year. The other piece that does go with this is we do keep our teacher Sally Hoyer is certifiable in the sense that she can teach this and do that through a professional development plan that's run through our current ordinance funding that we do every single year. But you're looking at max $1,500 a year, and that's us changing those out pretty fast at that point.
Okay, and about how many students are enrolled in the culinary arts?
Oh, if we look at the whole strand, that would include courses beyond this, you're talking hundreds of them. In this case, you're talking of probably about 100 kids every single year, 80 to 100 kids that are enrolled in these courses here. This is the course sequence that feeds into, and most of us know as the classes that work within the Nifty Nibble, our student-run restaurant at the high school.
Okay, then I'm gonna view that as about $15 per student.
Yeah.
If the lifespan of the resource is 5 years, and about 100 students use it per year, then, that's the math I'm gonna use to,
Sounds good. Sounds good.
and in my opinion, that's a reasonable amount.
Yeah, I was very happy with the pricing we got, for the textbooks, so, and the resources, so. So question
I just, sometimes when you look at this, you think, oh, wow, okay, these resources are great, they're competitively priced, well, but how much are they being used? How many kids are actually using them? That's important to me.
Absolutely.
And a lot of those kids go right to work in.
Yeah, a lot of our kids are in work-based learning opportunities through youth apprenticeship, through a co-op, and then they're going and working at local business and industry here upon graduation or even while in school for us at that point in time, so.
That's exciting.
So, yeah, so the question would be then is just what next steps you would like or process you'd like us to go through? Because it is a little different than, here's 5 different resources and pick one.
Yeah.
It's, hey, this is the one that we want, so we continue to offer the certification.
My goal would just be to move it on to the school board after this. Anything you feel differently?
Aaron, so did I hear you correctly, where we can move this item on the agenda forward for, discussion at the next meeting?
I think so.
Yeah, I agree.
Sounds good, then we will get that on the agenda for next week, Monday's meeting. We'll go from there, but do the same little brief presentation and then, see what questions we'll go forward with that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Karen, the next meeting is April 5th.
April 5th. Tanya, did you hear that next meeting, April 5th?
The next, regular school board
Curriculum.
meeting, or the next curriculum meeting?
Yep. I don't have anything else to add before we adjourn. Do you have anything, Connie?
No, thank you.
Okay, well then we will adjourn at 9 o'clock on the dot. Thank you, everybody.